Good morning, Wasada. I'm Stephanie Chardon Clark, New Mexico's Secretary of Taxation and Revenue, and I'm really happy to be joining you today from this remote location. I hope that wherever the pandemic finds you, that you, your families, and your staff are safe and well, and that your operations are continuing as best they can during this challenging time. Today, I have an opportunity to talk to you about three innovative data sharing collaboration initiatives that the Taxation and Revenue Department in New Mexico was able to take part in with our sister agencies here in New Mexico over the last year. As an overview, I just want to talk about a little bit why we would take our time to do these special projects. Like yours, New Mexico's constituents expect their state agencies to work together and make sure that we can provide them with services in as seamless as a way possible. But of course, we always have to be mindful of data confidentiality and safeguarding our data. Data security and preventing data breaches is really just about the most important thing that we need to do, and we need to do it well, and there can't be any room for error in that. And so moving forward, if you consider, any ideas that this presentation might give you, just keep in mind that every state has different laws related to sharing of confidential data between agencies. And you also need to always be mindful of the IRS disclosure requirements that we all need to follow. So the first data sharing project that I want to talk to you about is one that the Public Education Department approached us about. Up until now, the Public Education Department, when it has needed to distribute school funding between different schools, they could only rely on pretty large census tract data that had to do with, identifying how many students in each school district or school fell within a poverty level. And so because the census data wasn't very precise, the distribution of state funding wasn't very precise. And it's a big deal in New Mexico because almost half of our general funding goes to K-12 education. In some states, I know that there's more local funding for schools, but in New Mexico, a large portion of it comes from the state. And so what we did is we received a data file from the Public Education Department listing all their enrollees statewide. And there are about 331,000 school enrollees statewide. So the Public Education Department sent us that data. Something that made it a little challenging, though, is that they do not collect Social Security number or another ID number that would aid us in sort of seamlessly matching those enrollees in the schools to a tax return. So we tried a variety of factors to try to match students to a tax return to determine their poverty level. We tried student name, date of birth, guardian name, and student address. And at the end of the day, we were able to match about 70% of the enrollees statewide based on the student name and date of birth. That was the best matching that we could come up with. And so once we matched the 70% of students, we were able to take the tax return that those students appeared on, and using the adjusted gross income and the family size listed on the tax return, we were able to sort the matched students into poverty level based on thresholds that the Public Education Department provided us with. And then we sent back a data file to the Public Education Department, just telling them for each individual school statewide, how many of the students in that school fell within each poverty level that they had provided to us. So we didn't actually need to provide them any confidential tax return information. For the tax returns we matched to a student, we just sorted them into poverty level by school. And then to complete the project, for the 30% of students that we didn't match to a tax return, we sent them back their own data to let them know which students hadn't been matched. And then they could proceed to distribute the funds in whatever way they saw fit based on the matched poverty level data as well as the lack of matches. The next project I want to highlight for you had to do with, it was a project that we worked on together with our state human services department, where we wanted to ensure that as many New Mexicans as possible received their federal stimulus payment and as part of the CARES Act. And so the Human Services Department shared with the Tax Department a list of about 427,000 dependents who were in HSD's database. And that basically means that sometime in the recent past, that dependent's family has applied for social assistance, be it the SNAP program or TANF or something else. And so we received first 427,000 dependents including their ID number, which was usually a social security number or an ITIN, their name, their date of birth, and their address. And the first thing we needed to do was just eliminate the vast majority of those records, mostly because those dependents appeared on a tax return. And we figured that if they were on a 2018 or 2019 tax return, there was a very good chance that the family had already received a federal stimulus payment for that child and for their family. We eliminated a few more records based on concerns of identity theft or fraud or lack of full information coming on the record. And we were left with about 36,000 dependents who appeared to be in a family that was a non-filer. And so the final step was to send a mailing to the families of those 36,000 dependents. We basically let them know that the IRS had a November 21st deadline to claim a federal stimulus payment using their non-filer tool. We gave them directions of where they could find the non-filer tool and a contact number at our department to call if they had any questions. And we also let them know that if they were to file tax returns, they might be eligible for refundable tax credits. And finally, the last data sharing project that I wanted to highlight for you had to do with the completion of the 2020 census. New Mexico is notoriously a difficult state to count. We have a very rural state and more issues with addressing than most states have because of our rural nature and also because of the large share of the state that is in tribal land. And so we really need, every 10 years, New Mexico really needs to take extreme efforts to make sure that we get as close to a full count as possible. And I know, as you all know, that a lot of federal funding is at stake. Millions of dollars could be lost if we didn't count every single New Mexican that we could possibly count. So what we did to assist with this census is we went to our motor vehicle division driver database, and we were able to find about 500,000 mobile phone numbers that were in that database who at some point or other had been drivers in New Mexico. And we sent the census coordinators a data file that only included the mobile phone number and the zip code in which it was listed. No other identifying information, no names, addresses, or anything else. And the 500 or so thousand mobile phone numbers were each sent 3 text messages over a period of about 4 months. And when given the chance to opt out, about 5.5% of the recipients of those text messages did opt out and didn't receive any further text messages from us. But about 12% of the recipients actually responded to the text message to let us know, for example, that they had already completed the census, or they were going to complete the census, or and if they had already completed it, they might have gotten a follow-up text that actually asked them to be a census ambassador, meaning that they were going to be encouraged and commit to talking to their family and friends about the importance of completing the census. In addition to the text messaging campaign that we helped facilitate, the Taxation and Revenue Department, through its mailing apparatus, also sent out about 110,000 other reminders and flyers related to the census. Every time we sent out a vehicle registration or anything like that, anything positive. We didn't send this out with notices of audit or assessment. But anytime we send out anything positive to an individual, we sent out a flyer. And at the end of the day, New Mexico came within about 1% of its census goal. So we feel really good about assisting in that effort. That concludes my presentation of these 3 innovative data sharing projects that Taxation and Revenue Department participated in over the last year. And if you or anyone on your staff is interested in receiving more information about these, how we did it, and what it took, I would encourage you to contact our Chief Information Officer and IT Director, and his name and email address are here. He's mike.baca@state.nm.us. And my contact information and our websites are also listed here if there's any way that we can assist you or your agencies in thinking through any collaborative data sharing projects. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to share these ideas with you.